The auction room at the Grand Palace was filled with a soft golden glow from the overhead chandeliers, their light reflecting off the polished marble floors. The space was vast and elegant, filled with high-profile investors and industry moguls, all waiting for the bidding to begin. Damien Hart, one of the wealthiest real estate tycoons in the country, sat at the back, casually flipping through some reports on his tablet. His demeanor was calm, but a sharp focus burned in his eyes. This auction wasn't just another business transaction. For him, this was personal. Damien wasn't accustomed to losing, and today, he would make sure that nothing would slip through his fingers. As the room buzzed with chatter, Mia Turner walked in, her presence immediately commanding attention. Dressed in a tailored black suit, with her brown hair neatly pulled back, Mia exuded confidence with every step. She wasn't here just to participate, she was here to win. As a young investor, she had worked tirelessly to build her reputation in a world dominated by older, established men. Every deal she made was an opportunity to prove that she didn't need her family's wealth to succeed. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on the plot of land being auctioned. It was a prime piece of property right in the heart of downtown, and Mia knew that acquiring it would not only be a great investment, but a huge leap forward in her career. However, the one person standing between her and this opportunity was Damien Hart. He was a giant in the industry, and no one had ever been able to outbid him in a deal like this. The auction began, and Damien wasted no time placing the first bid. His voice was calm, confident, as he effortlessly raised the price. The crowd around him didn't flinch. They knew who they were dealing with. But Mia wasn't intimidated. This was her chance to make a name for herself, and she wouldn't back down. As the price continued to climb, Mia stayed calm. She had anticipated this moment and prepared herself. With every increase in bid, she raised the stakes, maintaining her composure. Damien's competitive nature could be seen in his steady gaze, but Mia held her own. Her strategy was simple. Don't just outbid him, outsmart him. With a final, swift move, Mia made her bid, forcing the price to a level that no one else was willing to reach. Damien paused, his eyes narrowing as he assessed her. No one had ever dared to challenge him in this way. For a moment, it was as if the entire room held its breath. Then, the gavel came down, signaling the end of the bidding. Mia had won. She stood there, a smile curling at the corners of her lips as she watched the auctioneer confirm the sale. Damien, standing across the room, locked eyes with her for just a moment. There was no anger or resentment in his gaze, just a sharp, calculating look that suggested he was impressed. But, like any seasoned businessman, Damien wasn't the type to show his hand too easily. He turned and walked out of the room without a word. Mia, on the other hand, allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. She had won the land, yes, but she knew this was only the beginning. Damien Hart wasn't someone who would let a loss slide. He would be back, and when he came, she would be ready. As she walked out of the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths would cross again soon. Damien Hart was a force to be reckoned with, but she wasn't intimidated. She had just proven to herself that she was capable of beating him at his own game. 2 days after the auction, Mia Turner found herself staring at the blueprints for the new project she was planning. She had won the land, but the work was just beginning. Her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her focus. It was a message from Caleb, her trusted advisor. Caleb, Mia. I heard what happened with Damien Hart. He's not going to let this go easily. Mia smiled, tapping out a quick reply. Mia. I don't expect him to. but he'll have to deal with it. She knew Caleb was right. Damien Hart wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. He was a powerhouse in the industry, and someone who could challenge her at every step. But Mia was determined to prove herself, not just as a woman in a male-dominated world, but as someone capable of building her own legacy. She wasn't afraid of Damien, no matter how intimidating he might be. The next day Damien sat in his sleek glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline. The bright lights of downtown reflected off the glass, but his focus was on the land Mia had just acquired. He had wanted that property, and he had assumed it would be his. But Mia had outsmarted him. Despite his outward composure, a small part of him felt something akin to respect for her. Few people had the courage to challenge him so boldly, especially in front of so many industry leaders. But that respect was quickly overshadowed by his desire to regain control of the deal. Sophie, Damien's assistant, walked in, holding a phone in her hand. "Sophie, Mr. Hart, Mia Turner is on the line. She says she needs to speak with you." Damien raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected Mia to reach out so soon. He wasn't one to take calls from competitors unless it was for business. But something told him this wasn't just about the property. Damien put her through. The phone rang once. Then Mia's voice came through clearly, cool and confident as ever. "Mia, hello, Damien. I trust you've had time to process the results of the auction." Damien leaning back in his chair. "I have, and I'm curious, Mia, what makes you think you can hold on to that property when you don't even have the resources to develop it?" Mia could hear the underlying challenge in his voice. He was probing for weaknesses, and she had expected that. But she wasn't about to let him intimidate her. "Mia, I have everything I need to make it work. But you're right, Damien. I don't have the resources to do it alone. That's why I'm calling." Damien's interest peaked. "Damien, go on, Mia. I'm offering you a chance to partner with me. Together, we can develop this property into something bigger than either of us could do alone. We both know it's the kind of investment that could change the skyline of this city." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Damien was considering her offer carefully. He wasn't one to share control over any project. But Mia was right about one thing: this was too valuable a property to let slip by. If he could get her to play by his rules, a partnership might be beneficial. But he wasn't going to give up his position as the one in control. "Damien, and why would I partner with you, Mia? I don't do business with people who can't offer me something more than just a pretty face." Mia with a slight smile. "Because, Damien, you need me. You may not like admitting it, but you can't do everything on your own. And I can offer you something you don't have: creativity, vision, and the determination to make things happen. You're too focused on maintaining control to see it." Damien's lips twitched. She was blunt, unapologetic, and confident, combination that most people in his world didn't dare to have. "Damien, I don't share control." "Mia ever?" Mia without hesitation. "Then I'll take full control. I'll buy you out, Damien. You think you can afford me?" Mia, a challenge in her voice. "Let's see if you're willing to sell." The following day, the meeting Mia entered Damien's office the next day with a determined expression. She wasn't just there to negotiate. She was there to prove a point. Damien was sitting behind his massive desk, his cold blue eyes studying her as she walked in. His expression was unreadable, but Mia wasn't intimidated. "Damien, so you want me to sell?" "Mia, not exactly. I want us to work together, Damien. I know you don't want to lose control, but what you don't realize is that this partnership could give us both the leverage we need to dominate this market. Damien, smirking. Dominating the market requires more than just ambition. It requires power, and I don't share my power. Mia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. She had worked hard to get to this point, and she wasn't about to back down now. Mia, power isn't everything, but influence is. And you need influence in this city as much as I do. If we combine our strengths, we can build something that neither of us could do alone. You've been working alone for too long, Damien. It's time for a change. For the first time since she entered the room, Damien's posture relaxed. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with a newfound respect. Damien, you're right. I don't play well with others, but I'm willing to listen. So, what do you have in mind? Mia smiled, her confidence unwavering. She had his attention now, and she wasn't going to waste the opportunity. Mia left Damien's office that afternoon with a sense of accomplishment, though it was tempered with a feeling of uncertainty. She had made the first move offered, a partnership, and gotten him to entertain the idea. But she knew better than to assume it was a done deal. Damien Hart was a man who liked to be in control, and sharing it with anyone, let alone a younger, less experienced investor like herself, was not something he would do lightly. She wasn't going to let her guard down, though. She had earned this moment, and now she was going to make sure she capitalized on it. As she walked to her car, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Caleb, her right-hand man. Caleb, I heard you met with him. How'd it go? Mia smiled to herself, her fingers quickly typing out a reply. Mia, we'll see. He's intrigued, but not convinced. It's a start. She leaned back against her car, looking up at the towering skyline of the city. She had always admired the way the city looked at night, its lights gleaming like stars. This city had given her everything, and now it was her turn to leave her mark on it. The following week, Damien sat at his desk, staring at the proposal Mia had sent over. It was straightforward. A joint venture, equal shares, and equal decision-making power. It was the latter that intrigued him the most. He wasn't used to anyone sharing his authority, especially not in a project this big. Yet there was something about Mia's proposal that spoke to him. Something about her confidence and her ability to get under his skin. As much as Damien tried to dismiss the thought, he knew she was right about one thing. Power wasn't everything. Influence, however, was, and Mia was someone who could help him gain influence in this city. But was he willing to risk sharing the reins with someone who was as unpredictable as her? He picked up the phone and dialed her number. Mia, answering Damien. I was wondering when you'd call. Damien, with a smirk. I've been thinking about your offer, and I think we need to talk. That afternoon, Damien's office. Mia entered Damien's office once again. Her expression cool but determined. She had been prepared for this moment. Damien had clearly been mulling over her proposal, and now it was time to see where he stood. Damien, you're not an easy one to impress. Mia, I'll give you that. Mia grinning. I didn't get here by making it easy for people. Damien leaned forward, his fingers steepled in front of him. He looked at Mia with a mix of curiosity and caution. Damien, I've been thinking. We could work together, but it won't be on your terms. You understand that, right? Mia's eyes narrowed, but she kept her composure. Mia, I don't expect it to be on my terms, Damien. But I won't accept anything less than equal power. If we're going to do this, we do it my way. no exceptions. Damien stared at her for a moment, trying to gauge if she was bluffing. But there was no hesitation in her eyes. She meant what she said. And for the first time in a long while, Damien felt a twinge of respect for her. Damien, you're tough. I'll give you that. But tough doesn't always mean smart. If you're serious about this partnership, you need to be prepared for the consequences. The risks in this industry are high. Mia, one wrong move, and everything can come crashing down. Mia, I'm aware of the risks, Damien, and I'm prepared to take them. But I'm also prepared to fight for what's mine. You should know that by now. There was a moment of silence between them as Damien considered her words. His instincts told him to push back, to keep control, to keep the upper hand. But something about Mia, her confidence, and the challenge she represented made him question his own instincts. Damien, fine, we'll do it your way. But don't think for a second that I won't take control when the time comes. Mia nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. She had gotten what she wanted, at least for now. But she knew that this was only the beginning. With Damien Hart, there would always be a power struggle. She wasn't naive enough to think she had won him over completely. Mia, I'll be ready for it. And when that time comes, we'll both have something to gain. Damien stood up, offering her a hand across the desk. She hesitated for just a moment before shaking it firmly. Damien, you're playing a dangerous game. Mia, but I'll give you credit, you were good at it. Mia, I didn't get here by playing it safe. Later that day, outside, Damien's office, Mia stepped out of Damien's office, her heart still racing. She had won him over, but she knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger battle. There was still a long way to go before she could claim true victory. And Damien Hart was not the type to lose without a fight. As she walked down the hall toward the elevator, she glanced back at Damien's office. She had made her move, but she wasn't sure if it was the right one. All she knew was that if she was going to succeed in this partnership, she had to stay one step ahead of him. But for now, she would enjoy the small victory. She had gotten Damien to agree to her terms, and that was a win in her book. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and endless emails. Mia and Damien's partnership, while still in its early stages, had begun to take shape. Together, they made steady progress on the development of the property, but the tension between them was palpable. They were constantly testing each other's limits, pushing boundaries, and seeing how much control the other was willing to give up. Mia had always prided herself on her ability to read people, to understand what made them tick. But Damien was different. He wasn't easily read. Beneath his composed exterior, Mia sensed there was something more, something personal that he kept hidden behind that ironclad facade. She had to know more. Damien's office, late. Afternoon. Damien was sitting at his desk, staring at the stack of reports in front of him, when he heard the soft knock at the door. It was Miyoshi was early for their meeting, something he hadn't anticipated. Damien, without looking up, come in. Mia stepped into his office, her presence as commanding as ever. She had come to talk business, of course, but there was something else in the air, something unspoken between them. She could sense it. Mia, I thought we could go over the projections for the next phase of the development. Damien nodded, gesturing for her to sit. But as she made her way to the chair across from him, she couldn't help but notice the tension in his posture. He was restless. Something was bothering him, and she wasn't going to let it go unnoticed. She decided to test the waters. Mia, is everything all right, Damien? You seem distracted today. Damien's eyes flickered to her, sharp and calculating, before he looked away again. He didn't respond immediately, but she knew he was thinking carefully about how to answer. Damien, just the usual. The business, the numbers, everything. You know how it is. Mia wasn't convinced. She knew that look, the one where he was trying to keep everything locked away. She wasn't about to let him close off again. She had learned long ago that people like Damien didn't open up easily. But that only made her more determined to break through. Mia leaning forward slightly. You're not one to leave things to chance, Damien. So when something's on your mind, you usually deal with it. What's really going on? Damien finally met her gaze, his eyes intense, almost as if he was deciding whether to let her in or push her away. After a long beat, he sighed. Damien, it's nothing you need to worry about. Just ... personal stuff. Mia's curiosity was piqued, but she knew better than to push too hard. For now, she decided to let it go, though she made a mental note to keep an eye on him. She had learned enough about Damien, heart to know that when someone as guarded as him started talking about personal stuff, there was a lot more to the story. Mia, all right. We'll come back to that later then. But let's focus on what we're here for today. The evening after the meeting, Mia left Damien's office feeling as though she'd just made a small breakthrough, but it wasn't enough. She needed more than just small talk and guarded glances. She had been working with Damien long enough to know that there were layers to him, layers he wasn't willing to expose to anyone. That evening, as Mia sat at her apartment, sifting through the latest development reports, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important about Damien's past that he wasn't sharing. She'd been in this business long enough to know that secrets could be dangerous, and Damien was holding on to something that could change everything if it ever came to light. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was Caleb again, always there when she needed him. Caleb, everything okay? You sound off, Mia. Just thinking. About Damien, actually. Caleb, that guy. He's a mystery, but you've got to be careful. He doesn't let anyone get too close. Mia, I know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. There's something he's not telling me. Caleb, you know you're walking a fine line, right? Getting too close to someone like him. It can be dangerous. Mia leaned back in her chair, staring out the window at the city lights. Caleb was right. She was walking a fine line, but there was something about Damien that she couldn't ignore. He had secrets, sure, but so did she. The difference was, she wasn't running from hers. Mia, I'll be careful, but I'm not backing off. I need to know what he's hiding. The next day, Damien's office. The following day, Damien was deep in thought when the knock on his door interrupted him. He wasn't expecting anyone, but when he saw Mia standing in the doorway, his first instinct was to shut down whatever she was going to say. Mia, we need to talk. Damien gestured for her to come in, his expression guarded. He had no idea where this conversation was headed, but he could feel it building. Damien, about what? Mia, about us. About this partnership. And about what you're not telling me. Damien's eyebrows shot up, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. He was used to controlling every conversation, but with Mia, it was different. She was getting closer than he wanted her to. Damien, what do you mean by that? Mia took a step closer, her voice steady, but there was an edge to it that Damien hadn't expected. Mia, I can't keep working with you. Damien, if you're hiding things from me, I don't care about your business strategies, but I need to know what's going on in your life. What's behind that wall you've built up? Because one way or another, it's going to affect our work. Damien didn't speak right away. The room felt suddenly smaller, the weight of the moment hanging in the air between them. For a second, he considered pushing her away, shutting her down the way he'd done to so many others before. But Mia wasn't like the others. She wasn't intimidated, and for the first time in a long while, Damien felt himself wavering. "Damien," softly, "I can't let you in, Mia. You don't want to know everything. It's not something you can understand." Mia didn't flinch. Instead, she took another step closer, her voice gentle but firm. "Mia, I can handle it, Damien. But I can't do this alone. If you want this partnership to work, we have to trust each other completely." Damien looked at her, a mix of emotions flickering in his eyes. For a moment, the walls he had spent years building seemed like they were cracking. "Damien, I don't trust anyone. Not anymore." Mia met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "Mia, then maybe it's time you started." Mia's patience was beginning to wear thin. She had pushed Damien, confronted him, and yet he still refused to let down his guard. She had known from the start that he was a man of secrets, but this silence, this impenetrable wall, this was something else. And she wasn't about to back down now. The city was buzzing with opportunities, but Mia's mind kept returning to one thing: Damien's past. She could feel that something was there, something that, if she could uncover it, would change everything between them. Business was one thing, but getting to the truth, that was something far more complicated. The next morning, Damien's office mate walked into Damien's office earlier than usual, catching him off guard. He was hunched over some reports, but when he saw her, he stood up immediately. His posture was rigid, and for a brief moment, there was a flash of something in his eyes, something between hesitation and annoyance. He wasn't expecting her today, but she had made her decision. She needed answers. "Mia, we need to talk, Damien." He didn't reply immediately, but gestured for her to sit down. The silence between them felt heavier than usual. "Damien, what is it this time, Mia?" Mia sat across from him, her gaze never wavering from his. She wasn't going to let him brush her off again. "Not this time, Mia. You're hiding something, Damien, and I need to know what it is. This partnership, whatever we're doing here, it won't work if you keep shutting me out. You've been distant, cold, and I'm done pretending I don't see it." Damien stared at her for a long moment, his jaw clenched. It was clear he was struggling with something, and Mia wasn't about to let him push her away again. He wasn't the only one who had things to hide. She had her own secrets, but this was different. She wanted to know his secrets. "Damien, I've told you what you need to know. This is business, Mia, nothing more. Mia, no, this is personal. You think I can't see it. I've worked with enough people to know when someone's hiding something." Damien's eyes flickered, the first sign of emotion she had seen from him in weeks. His usual calm demeanor cracked. "Just for a moment. Damien, you don't know what you're asking for." Mia leaned in, her voice quiet but firm. "Mia, maybe I do. I've seen enough people crumble under pressure, Damien. But you're different. You've been carrying this for so long, haven't you? Whatever it is, whatever happened in your past, it's affecting everything. Your decisions, this partnership, us." Damien's face hardened, but Mia could see a flicker of something: fear, regret. He wasn't going to admit it. Not yet, but Mia wasn't giving up. "Mia, I'm not here to break you. I just need you to let me in. Because if we're going to succeed in this, I need to know what I'm working with. You need to know I'm not going anywhere." There was a long pause. Damien stood still, his gaze fixed on her, and for the first time, Mia thought he might actually open up. But instead, he turned away, walking over to the window. He looked out over the city, his back to her. "Damien, I don't let people in, Mia. I never have. It's how I survive." Mia stood up, moving closer to him. She wasn't going to let him hide in his office, staring out at the skyline. She wasn't going to let him run away from this. "Mia, you can't keep hiding, Damien. It's not just about the project, it's about trust. And you have to trust me, or this is never going to work." Damien's shoulders stiffened. His voice was low, filled with emotion he clearly didn't want to show. "Damien, I trusted someone once, and they destroyed me. I learned the hard way that trust is a luxury I can't afford." Mia was taken aback. She had expected resistance, but this vulnerability was something she hadn't anticipated. She softened, stepping closer to him. "Mia, I'm not here to destroy you, Damien. I'm here because I believe in what we can do together. But I can't do it alone. I won't." Damien finally turned, facing her with an unreadable expression. His gaze was intense, but there was a shift in his eyes, a quiet storm that Mia couldn't ignore. "Damien, I can't promise you anything, but if you're going to be a part of this, if you're going to be a part of me, you need to understand that there are parts of me that no one will ever see, not even you." Mia nodded, her expression serious. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with it. She wasn't afraid of the darkness he carried. She had her own demons, and she would deal with them. But Damien, he was going to have to decide if he was going to let her in, or keep her at arm's length forever. "Mia, then let me decide if I can live with it." Later that evening, Mia walked out of Damien's office, her mind swirling with questions. She had finally gotten him to admit that there was something in his past, something painful, that he was trying to bury. But what? She could feel the weight of his unspoken secrets pressing against her, and it only made her more determined to get to the truth. As she stepped into the elevator, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Caleb, sending another quick message. "Caleb, you pushed him, didn't you?" "What did he say?" "Mia, he's hiding something. Something big. I think it's personal, not business. He's afraid of trusting anyone. I need to know what it is. Caleb, be careful, Mia. People like him. They don't let go easily." Mia leaned back against the elevator wall, staring at the phone screen. She wasn't backing down. She had already come this far, and there was no turning back now. Damien's heart might be a wall of steel, but she had every intention of breaking through. The following week felt like an emotional whirlwind for Mia. She had learned more about Damien than she ever expected. Beneath the cold, calculating exterior, there was pain, regret, and a fear of vulnerability that Mia hadn't anticipated. He had opened up, just a little, but it wasn't enough to put her mind at ease. She had to know everything. The more she thought about it, the more she realized how much his past shaped his present, his reluctance to trust, his need for control, his unwillingness to let anyone get too close. She needed to understand the full story if they were going to make this work. But she had to be careful. She knew Damien would never forgive her if he felt like she was prying into his life too much. Still, the stakes were too high for her to back down now. Later that week, Damien sat at his desk, his eyes glued to a new set of reports. but his mind kept drifting back to the conversation he had with Mia. Her words echoed in his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had let something slip, something that could unravel everything he'd worked so hard to protect. He didn't want to trust her. He didn't want to trust anyone. But there was something about her, something in her persistence, that made him want to give in. The door creaked open, and Mia walked in, her expression more serious than usual. Damien looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly. She was wearing the same confident aura she always had, but today, there was an intensity to her gaze that he hadn't seen before. Damien, looking up from his desk. "What's on your mind, Mia?" Mia stood still for a moment, taking in his guarded expression. She had been thinking a lot about what he had said in their last conversation. She wanted to push further, to find out what Damien was hiding. But she also knew how much he resented being questioned. Mia carefully. "You said there are things I don't need to know, but I'm not sure that's true anymore. You and I both know that the past doesn't just stay in the past. It follows us. And if we're going to move forward with this partnership, I need you to let me in." Damien's jaw tightened at her words. He could feel the tension rise, but he refused to show it. Mia was pushing him again, but this time it felt different. She wasn't backing down. She wasn't giving up on this, on him. He knew he couldn't keep avoiding her questions forever. But he didn't know if he was ready to face the consequences of revealing the truth. Damien, coldly. "This isn't just about us, Mia. It's about business. You wanted to make money. I gave you that. But if you're looking for something more, ... if you want to dig into my past, then you're going to be disappointed." Mia softly. "Damien, I didn't come here for more. I came here because I see something in you, something I want to understand. But if you're going to keep me at arm's length, then we can't work together. I need to know that I'm not just another pawn in your game." Damien felt his heart race at her words. He wasn't used to anyone speaking to him like this. No one had ever challenged him quite like Mia. She was right. This wasn't just about business anymore. It never had been. For the first time, Damien let his guard down completely. His eyes softened slightly as he looked at her, and for a brief moment, there was no anger or distrust in his gaze. Just raw vulnerability. Damien sighing. "You want to know the truth? Fine, I've lost everything I ever cared about. My family, my trust. I buried myself in work, in money, in power. It was the only thing that kept me sane. I didn't want anyone else to get close because I didn't want to lose them too. And now I'm afraid I'm going to lose you too." Mia felt a pang in her chest at his words. It wasn't the confession she'd expected, but it was the one she needed. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "Mia, you're not going to lose me, Damien, but I need you to let me in. I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, there was silence between them. The weight of his past, of all the things he had kept buried, hung in the air. Damien's walls had cracked just a little, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He turned away, his back to her, staring out the window at the city below. The lights of the skyline were bright, blinding even. It reminded him of everything he had lost. "Damien, I don't know if I can do that." "Mia, I don't know if I can let you in." Mia placed a hand gently on his shoulder, her voice steady but full of compassion. "Mia, you don't have to let me in all at once. Just ... let me in enough to know that you trust me, enough to know that we can fight together. I don't need to know everything, but I need to know that you're here, There was a long pause before Damien finally spoke again, his voice softer than it had ever been. "Damien, I'm here, but I'm not sure I can give you what you want." Mia smiled gently, stepping back just enough to give him space, but not to leave. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. Damien wasn't going to change overnight. But this was a start, and that was all she needed for now. The next day, a new beginning. The next morning, Mia and Damien found themselves back in the conference room, facing the mountain of paperwork that still lay ahead. The property was starting to take shape, and though the partnership between them still felt fragile, it was becoming more solid with each passing day. They were learning to work together, to navigate the delicate balance of power and trust. As the meeting began, there was a shift in their dynamic. Damien was no longer the distant, unapproachable CEO he had been when they first met. Mia had made progress, and while they still had a long way to go, the cracks in his armor were showing. He had let her in, just a little, and that made all the difference. For the first time since they began working together, Mia felt like they were on equal footing. There was no longer a barrier between them, just a shared goal and, maybe, just maybe, a budding connection that neither of them had expected. Mia had never expected to be so drawn into Damien's world. His cold, calculated exterior had given her the impression that he was a man of pure businessman who could be bought, manipulated, or defeated with the right moves. But now, as they sat side by side at the conference table, reviewing the latest reports for the new development project, she understood how wrong she'd been. Damien was not just a businessman. He was a fortress, a man who had built his empire on the ashes of his past, burying emotions and fears behind a wall so high that it could only be cracked with time. And time, Mia knew, was not a luxury they had. The stakes were too high, the project too important, for them to continue operating with so much unresolved tension between them. But the trust she had been fighting for was beginning to take root. He had finally let her in just a little, but that was enough for her to see the man behind the suit. Still, the deeper she went, the more she realized how complicated their dynamic was. She wasn't sure if Damien even realized how much of his past was influencing their present. But one thing was certain. Every step they took forward felt like a step toward something far more dangerous than just business. The day after their conversation, the morning after their emotional conversation, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. The barriers that had once kept them apart had cracked, but the real challenge was yet to come. Damien had revealed a part of himself that he had kept hidden for years. But his admission had also left her with more questions than answers. She had tried to push the conversation forward, but Damien had always deflected. She couldn't help but wonder if he would ever truly open up, or if this was as far as he could go. She knew he had his limits, and breaking through them wasn't going to be easy. But Mia wasn't the type to back down when she wanted something, and what she wanted now was his full trust. That evening, after a long day of meetings, she decided to make another move. She wasn't just going to sit back and wait for him to come around. She needed him to understand that they were in this together. No secrets, no hiding. Damien's office. Night Damien was sitting at his desk, his usual air of confidence still in place, but there was something off. He had been avoiding her for most of the day, his responses to her questions short, his mind clearly elsewhere. She could tell he was fighting something, and she wasn't about to let it go this time. Mia walked into his office, standing in front of his desk with a determined look on her face. "Mia, we need to talk." Damien looked up. his eyes sharp, but he didn't make a move to stand. He already knew what this was about, Damien. Not now, Mia. We've been through this already. Mia, leaning forward slightly. No, Damien. You need to listen to me this time. We've been tiptoeing around the issue for weeks, and I'm not doing it anymore. Whatever it is you're holding back, you need to let it go. You want this to work, right? Then you have to trust me. You have to let me in. Damien stiffened at her words. He was not used to being told what to do, especially by someone so determined. But as he looked at Mia, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen before: sincerity. She wasn't just fighting for the project or for herself. She was fighting for him. To Damien softly. I don't want to do this. Mia, I don't want to drag you into my mess. Mia stepped closer, lowering her voice but keeping it firm. Mia, you already have. You don't get to keep me at arm's length anymore. If you're going to keep this partnership, if you're going to keep me, you need to trust me. Not just with the business, with everything. Damien stared at her, his gaze intense. His jaw clenched, as though the words he wanted to say were fighting to get out. But he refused to let them. Damien, you don't understand. I can't just let go, not like this. Not after everything. Mia didn't hesitate. She stepped even closer. The air between them thick with the unspoken things both of them were avoiding. Mia, you don't have to let go all at once. I'm not asking for everything, Damien. I'm asking for you. Right here, right now. Now. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of his past hung in the air like an oppressive storm, but Mia refused to back down. She could see the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes, the same vulnerability he had tried so hard to suppress. She wasn't going to let him hide anymore. Finally, Damien stood up, the silence broken. Damien, you want the truth. Fine, I'm not proud of it, but here it is. My family, they left me. They left me to handle everything alone. My father, my mother, they decided that I wasn't worth the trouble. I was too much of a burden. I've been carrying that weight ever since. Every failure, every mistake is on me. And I can't let anyone in because I'm terrified that if I do, they'll leave too. Just like they did. Mia's heart clenched at his words. She could feel the raw emotion in his voice, the pain that had been buried for so long. Mia softly, I'm not going anywhere, Damien. I'm here for the long haul, but you have to let me in. You can't keep fighting this battle alone. Not anymore. Damien took a deep breath, his hands resting on the desk as if trying to steady himself. Damien, I don't know if I can trust you the way you want me to, but I'll try. Mia smiled softly, stepping closer. Mia, that's all I need, Damien. Just a little trust. The next day, a new beginning. The following morning, things felt different between them. The weight of their unspoken tension had been lifted, if only slightly. Damien still wasn't fully open, but for the first time, he wasn't trying to shut her out. They spent the day working on the project, communicating more efficiently than they had in weeks. Mia could sense that Damien was still holding back, but now, at least, there was a flicker of hope that he might one day let her in fully. For now, that was enough. As they wrapped up the meeting and Damien got up to leave, he turned to Mia with a small but meaningful look. Damien, thanks for not giving up on me. Mia smiled, her confidence unwavering. Mia, I'm not going anywhere. The days following their conversation were quieter than Mia had expected. She had opened the door to Damien's heart, just a crack, but she couldn't tell whether he was truly ready to let her in. He was still guarded, of course, but now, at least, there was a softening something that hadn't been there before. They worked together on the new development project, each day bringing them closer to their shared goal. The partnership, though tentative, was beginning to feel real. Mia knew she had gained Damien's trust in a way that few people ever had, but she was still cautious. Trust, after all, was fragile, and she wasn't going to take it for granted. A week later, Mia arrived at Damien's office early one morning, as usual. She had always been a morning person, preferring the quiet hours before the rest of the world woke up. Today, however, something was different. She could feel the shift in the air, a quiet tension that hadn't been there before. As she entered the building and stepped into the elevator, she checked her phone to find a message from Caleb. As always, Caleb, everything okay with you and Damien? You've been quiet lately. Everything still moving forward? Mia paused for a moment before replying. Mia, yeah, but something feels off today. I'm not sure what it is yet. She pressed send and leaned back against the elevator wall, her thoughts racing. They had been making good progress on the development project. The partnership felt solid for the first time in weeks. Yet, today, there was an uneasy energy in the air. When the elevator doors opened, Mia stepped out and made her way to Damien's office. She was greeted by Sophie, Damien's assistant, who looked unusually serious. Sophie, Mia, you're early today. Damien's been waiting for you. Mia smiling. Great, let's see what he's got for me today. Sophie led her to the office, where Damien was already sitting at his desk, reviewing some documents. His usual steely composure was back, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes that Mia couldn't place. He looked up as she entered, and for a moment, their eyes locked. Damien, you're here. Good. We need to talk. Mia stepped forward, her brow furrowed. The tension in the room was palpable, and she could feel it in the pit of her stomach. This was more than just business. Something had changed, and she wasn't sure what it was yet. Mia, what's going on? You look... different. Damien, I've been thinking. We've been making progress with the project, but I'm starting to question whether this partnership is really the right move. Mia's heart skipped a beat. The words hit her harder than she expected. She had been so focused on breaking through Damien's walls that she hadn't anticipated him second-guessing their collaboration. Mia, what do you mean? We've been doing well. The numbers look good. The development's on track. Damien stood up from behind his desk and walked over to the window, his back to her. The weight of his decision was heavy, and Mia knew that he wasn't going to make this easy. Damien, I'm not talking about the project. Mia, I'm talking about us. About this. I've been working alone for so long that it's hard for me to trust anyone, even you. And the truth is, I don't know if I can go through with this partnership anymore. I'm afraid that, if I do, I'll lose everything. Again, Mia stood still, absorbing his words. The vulnerability in his voice was something she hadn't heard before, and it stirred something deep inside her. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about Damien confronting his deepest fears, the ones he had buried for so long. Mia, Damien, we've been through this already. I'm not going anywhere. You can't keep pushing me away. You want to let me in, but you won't let me be a part of this. We're partners now in everything. Damien turned around, his eyes clouded with frustration. He wasn't angry, But there was a storm inside him that Mia could feel. He ran a hand through his hair, as though trying to shake off the words he had just said. Damien, you don't understand. I don't do partnerships, not like this. The last time I trusted someone, it ended in disaster. I can't lose again, Mia. I can't risk it. Mia stepped closer, her voice calm but full of emotion. Mia, you're not going to lose me, Damien. But you're pushing me away when I'm right here. We're right here, together. We've got the project, we've got the future. But I need you to trust me fully. I need you to stop running. There was a long silence between them. Mia could see the battle raging inside Damien. She had never seen him so conflicted, so raw. This wasn't just about the project. This was about his deepest fear, losing someone he cared about. And for the first time, he was afraid of that happening again. Damien, I don't know how to trust anyone, Mia. I've spent my entire life protecting myself from getting hurt. I'm not sure I can do this with you. Mia's voice softened, her gaze steady. She wasn't giving up on him. Not now, not after everything, Mia. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to change overnight. But I am asking you to take the first step. Let me in, Damien. And let's figure this out together. Trust me. Trust us. For a moment, Damien stood motionless, staring at her. Then, slowly, he lowered his gaze. It was a small gesture, but to Mia, it felt like a breakthrough. He wasn't ready to fully let go of his walls, but he was willing to try. Damien, quietly, okay, I'll try. But I can't promise everything will be easy. Mia smiling. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for trust. That evening, a new understanding, the rest of the day passed in a blur. Damien had agreed to move forward, but there was an unspoken tension between them. Mia knew that trust wouldn't come easily to him, but at least they were both trying, and that, in itself, felt like progress. As the day ended and Mia left Damien's office, she felt a sense of quiet determination. There was still so much to work through, so many challenges ahead, but she was ready for it. They were partners, now on equal footing, and nothing was going to stop her from proving that their partnership could work, no matter the cost. For the first time in a long while, she believed in them. She believed in their future. And as long as they both kept moving forward, no matter how difficult, they would find a way to make it work. The days after Damien's admission of his fears were quieter, but Mia could feel the tension still lingering in the air. They continued working side by side on the project, but there was a subtle shift. Damien had opened up, yes, but he was still distant. Mia didn't expect things to change overnight, but she knew they couldn't keep dancing around the truth. They were still walking a fine line, and one misstep could unravel everything they had built. The trust between them had been fragile from the start, and now it was like a thin thread, one that could snap at any moment. But Mia wasn't backing down. She had come too far to let fear or hesitation tear them apart. That afternoon, as they sat down for another meeting to review the project's progress, Damien's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, but didn't pick it up immediately. Mia noticed the hesitation in his movements and the tightness in his jaw. Mia, who's that? Damien didn't respond immediately. He simply picked up the phone, checked the screen, and his expression darkened. Damien, it's nothing. Just some business stuff. Mia could tell it was more than that. There was something in his eyes, something he wasn't telling her. And for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of doubt. She couldn't afford to let him slip away again, not when they were finally making progress. Mia, Damien, we've been through this before. If there's something going on, you can tell me. He finally looked at her, his gaze sharp and cold. He wasn't angry, but there was a distant look in his eyes that told her he wasn't going to let her in this time. Not completely, Damien. I can't keep doing this. Mia, I can't keep letting you in, only to risk losing everything again. I've made my choices, and I need to stick to them. Mia felt her chest tighten. She had come this far, but this wasn't the man she'd worked so hard to build a partnership with. This wasn't the Damien who had opened up to her just days ago. This was the Damien who was running against, shutting her out. Mia, you think I'm going to walk away because you're afraid? Damien, I've stuck by you through everything. I'm here for the long haul, but you need to stop pushing me away. We need to stop running. For a moment there was silence. The weight of his internal battle hung in the air between them. Damien's grip on the table tightened, his knuckles white. He was fighting something far more than just their partnership. Damien's voice, barely above a whisper. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. To trust someone, only to have them leave you in the end. Mia's heart ached for him, but she couldn't let him spiral. She needed to break through, even if it meant pushing him further. Mia, I'm not going anywhere, Damien. You can't keep using your past as an excuse to shut me out. I won't give up on you, not now, not ever. But if you keep pushing me away, I won't have a choice but to walk away, and I don't want that. There was a long pause. Finally, Damien put his phone down and looked at her. For the first time in weeks, Mia saw something flicker in his eyes: guilt, fear, and, perhaps, just a touch of relief. Damien, I don't deserve this. You deserve someone who can give you all of them. Someone who can give you everything. Mia reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. His skin was warm, but there was still that distance between them. A barrier he hadn't quite been able to let go of. Mia, Damien, we both have our baggage. We both have our pasts. But that doesn't mean we can't move forward. We can do this together. But I need you to trust me. For a long moment, Damien didn't speak. Then, finally, he squeezed her hand, his grip still uncertain but real. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. The next day, a new horizon. The next morning, Damien made a decision. He had been running from his past for so long that he hadn't realized what he had in front of him. Mia had fought for him, for their partnership, and for a future together. He had been so focused on the fear of losing everything that he hadn't seen that he already had something worth fighting for. Damien walked into the office that day with a new sense of resolve. He wasn't going to let his past dictate his future anymore. He wasn't going to run from the woman who had shown him what trust really meant. Mia was already there, going over some reports. When he entered, she looked up, her eyes meeting his. For the first time in a long time, there was no distance between them. Damien, we need to talk. Mia smiled, a small, knowing smile that seemed to say everything. She knew what he was going to say before he said it. Mia, I think we've been talking a lot already. Damien chuckled softly, walking over to her. Damien, I've been a fool, Mia, for pushing you away, for running from what I'm most afraid of. But I can't keep doing that. I trust you. I'm ready to move forward. With you, Mia stood up, stepping closer to him. There was no hesitation in her now, no walls between them. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Mia, then let's move forward together. The next several months were a whirlwind of progress, for both the business and their relationship. Together, Mia and Damien led the development of the property into one of the most successful projects they'd ever worked on. Their trust in each other grew stronger with every challenge they faced. But it wasn't just about business anymore. They had learned to lean on each other, to share their dreams, their fears, and their ambitions. Damien, for the first time in his life, let someone in, not just as a partner, but as someone who truly cared about him. Mia had broken through his walls, not by forcing her way in, but by showing him that there was nothing to be afraid of. She had taught him what it meant to trust again, and for the first time, Damien felt like he had found something worth holding on to, something worth fighting for. A year later, a new beginning year had passed since they first started their partnership. The property was thriving, but it wasn't the only thing that had grown. Their relationship had evolved into something deeper, more meaningful. They had been through so much together: business, challenges, personal growth, and a journey of trust that neither of them could have imagined. Damien stood at the top of the building they had developed together, looking out at the skyline. Mia stood next to him, her hand in his. "Damien, I never thought I'd get here. I never thought I could trust someone like this." "Mia, you did. And you're not alone anymore." They both looked out at the city, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey. Together, they had built more than just a successful business. They had built a future full of possibilities, trust, and love. "Damien, here's to what we've built. Mia, together."